Okay, so I'm still in the gelato example, and I just want to throw some loose ends at you. Some of them we talked about last week when we were talking about the object class, like the cosmic superclass, as your book calls it. I call it the Godfather. It's this, very head honcho in the Java universe, the ultimate object from which all other objects inherit. And they inherit, kind of a collection of methods. A lot of them we don't need to worry about right now. But some of them are rather common, like toString that we use all the time. And that's the most important one. And then, we did talk about equals last week. I just threw that in here just for a little bit of review. Now, this equals, and this is an older program that I used when I was using a different book, and that book was not as stringent with the equals method. So this is like kind of a simplified version that I'll show you. And I guess I don't need that. Okay, so we have the comparison object. So, getting to a practical standpoint, if I'm writing an application for this store with their menu of their gelato flavors, how does one gelato object equal another? I need to be the person to decide that, because the computer doesn't know, Java doesn't know. So what does mean one flavor equals another? Well, I think the name of the flavor, if salted caramel equals salted caramel, then we are talking about the same flavor, okay? So that's what I've decided for this program. So what I'm doing here is I've got the comparison object coming through the door, okay? Notice it's coming through as a generic object. A generic object. It's a gelato object, make no mistake, but it's boxed up. I think I used the Amazon brown box analogy in an earlier video. So you can think of my gelato object, the comparison object, coming through the door. It's in a brown box. I can't see it, but don't worry, I'm going to dig in. I'm going to dig in, wave my magic wand at that brown box, and boom, I've got an actual gelato object from whom I can just grab that flavor with the get flavor getter, the get flavor getter, and compare it to the current flavor, the flavor for whom I am executing this equals method. And that's all. And if they're equal, then I'm going to return a true, or else I'm going to return a false. So that's it. So that's the overriding equals. And then I have another technique that is not in your book. I was surprised not to see this in your book. This is called a copy constructor. I'm just going to throw this out there and just kind of file it away. I'm not going to ask you to do one necessarily. If I do, I'll be very explicit, but this is called a copy constructor. So we already have our usual constructors that we deal with, the default constructor with kind of the no arguments, the parameterized constructor, those we know well. This is called a copy constructor. This is if you want to create a copy of an object or clone an object, basically, from an existing object, okay? So for example, look at the parameter. It's of type gelato. I've called it existing. You can call it whatever you want, but I like existing. And what I'm doing is, as this new object is being made, it's just like I'm just dumping the instance field values one at a time into the new object, from the existing, from the old into the new. Okay, so as the shiny new object is being created, I'm setting its flavor to the existing object's flavor, and setting the calories to the existing object's calories. Why would we do this? Well, I mean, this is a common thing to do, actually, having a copy constructor. I have an old example I want to show you. We talked about this one maybe a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about aggregation, okay? And I showed you, I'm going to push this down. Okay, let me kind of refresh your memory on this example. We had a book object, okay, and I've added a copy. I didn't talk about copy constructors at that time because we had enough to talk about. But I've added a copy constructor like the one I just showed you in the gelato. I added it to this book class. Okay, so this will allow me to clone a book. All right, and then in my course class, this was called an aggregate class because the course, in addition to the course name and the course code, contains a book object, which is the required text for that course. Okay, so this is aggregation that you know of already. So basically, a couple of weeks ago when I demoed this example, I had a line of code like this. So the book is an existing book is coming through the door, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is going to be the required test for my test object here. And all I did was I said, okay, great. The required test or the required text is whatever reference came through the door. Okay. What that was is called a shallow copy, which is not really necessarily what you want. Okay, let me show you. I have a document here. So let's deal with bunny objects or rabbit objects. Okay, let's say I have you don't even need to look at the code. Just look at the pictures here. Okay, so let's say I have a rabbit object in memory. Okay, and it's called R1. A shallow copy, like what you just saw in the code behind this with the book, would just create a new reference called R2, and it's pointing to that same rabbit. So, we call it a shallow copy. It's really not a copy at all. It's just two references now pointing to the same object in memory. Okay, so that's called a shallow copy. What we're going to do is use our copy constructor to create, to do a deep copy, which actually is a copy and is going to result in two identical objects in memory, each with its own object reference. Okay, so let me get back to that. All right, so we have that's the shallow copy. I'm going to comment it out, and then this is the deep copy, which is using the copy constructor that I added to book, which I showed you briefly, but I'll show you again. Okay. The existing book comes through the door. Piece by piece, we copy all the components into the brand new one. Okay, and now we've got two actual books in memory. So that's what's happening. So the deep copy using the copy constructor. Okay, and that's the preferred way to do it. And because basically, by the time this reference comes through, I don't know where it's coming from or how long it's been in the program or what's in it. There could be garbage in it. It could be pointing to a deleted book or some sort of corrupt book. Who knows? It's safer and more secure to just create, this is a brand new course. I want to create a brand new shiny book object of the required text, and I'm going to use my copy constructor to do that.